North Andover United, along with the League of Women Voters back 2 weeks ago. Keynote speakers, excuse me. The keynote speakers at that forum were Senator Bruce Tarr, as well as Michael Widmer from the Mass Taxpayers Foundation. It was amazing what they had to say. For those of you that are here in the audience and those at home, if you don't know by now, if ballot question number 1 passes, it takes out of the state budget over $12 billion. If the state government were to lay off every state employee, that would only eliminate $5.3 billion. Michael Widmer from the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, his organization, he's the president, his organization put out a report recently over the last 2 weeks going into detail as to what the effects would be on every municipality. For North Reading alone, ballot question number 1 were to pass, based upon his numbers, he looked at what North Reading received in state aid for FY08. His numbers were roughly $2.5 million. Our state aid would be reduced to $725,000. I just asked you to think about what that impact would have on this community after members of this board and this whole community worked very hard last year to get programs at our schools back to where they should be. Not where, I shouldn't say not where they should be, but we put programs back, put teachers back in the classroom, still not where we should be. Just think about the impact this would have, not only on our schools and the education of our children, but public safety, the roads, DPW. This will be absolutely devastating. How do you make up for that? Well, it'll just be another tax, in my opinion. Whether it'll be a statewide property tax, a local sales tax, they'll just come at it a different way. But the immediate consequence would be severe and devastating if this would to pass. In listening to Senator Tarr, it's in my opinion that the legislature would, in fact, implement this reduction in the income tax, unlike what they had done before. My sense, in listening to him that evening, the legislature will implement. I have no question regarding that. The forum I attended is actually being broadcast on our local cable stations between now and November 2nd. It'll be on Comcast Channel 22 and Verizon Channel 24. It'll run Sundays at 7 p.m., Tuesdays at 10 p.m., Wednesdays at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., and Fridays at 7 p.m. I ask you to take the time between now and November 2nd. Take the opportunity and review this forum. I think you'll come to the same conclusion I have, that passage of ballot question 1 is irresponsible, it's reckless. This ballot question cannot pass. If you want to review the report that was put out by the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, you can go to masstaxpayers.org. Or you can contact me, my home phone, 978-664-0968. Or you can email me at sdelaney@northreadingma.gov. I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you and provide you with a copy of the report. I think you should take the time to review it. Absolutely devastating. Also, I had an opportunity last week, along with Mr. Valiakonis, to be on a conference call with Lieutenant Governor Murray. Although that conference call was not, we weren't provided a lot of details as to what the governor was going to announce the following day, but the clear message I was receiving, and Mr. Valiakonis can correct me if I'm wrong in my assessment, was that although the governor did not and has not looked to the state legislature authority to cut state aid, at this point, it's my sense that they're just waiting to get past November 4th. And if state revenues continue to decline, the governor will ask for the legislature to give him authority to reduce state aid, local aid to municipalities. That's another issue that we have to be cognizant of, and I think we need to do whatever we can to make sure that doesn't happen.
all set? Thank you, Steve?
I just want to echo Sean's comments, and I won't go into the same level of detail, but one of the other interesting facts that I heard today was that that same Mr. Widmer, who's, pretty well-respected, today suggested to the legislature that the state government cannot sustain the cuts and is recommending that they do take a hard look at cutting local aid. Was his comment to the legislature, both the House and Senate Ways and Means Committee today. He testified before them both and suggested that they do take a look at local aid, that the cuts that the state government is sustaining, for the state government to sustain all of it itself would be too much, and it needs to be shared with local communities. And for him to come out and say that is not a good omen for not only what we're talking about this evening, because this doesn't come into play at all. This, we're just suggesting here, as far as a $700,000 shortfall, does not include any additional cuts in local aid, which, again, could be a very real possibility.
Could you clarify what you just said from the point of view, were you talking about if question one passes?
No, I'm talking about
Just the
this is
governor's
right now,
current
the
cut,
governor's
okay.
proposal, as he put forth last Wednesday, did not include cutting local aid. Mr. Widmer testified today before House and Senate Ways and Means, and suggested that a more prudent approach from a state government standpoint of the level of services that they must provide, that the burden should be shared a little bit more, and that reductions in local aid should be considered and should be on the table and should be made. So it doesn't bode well looking forward. And then you just talk about question one passing, which would certainly send a very strong message to the legislature to do something about it, whether it be implemented in total or even in part. You're just going to compound from a local standpoint, not mind the state government effects, but on a local standpoint, you're just going to devastate whatever local services we currently have, and we won't be able to sustain them at all. So, we have an awful lot on our plate right now in relation to monitoring our expenditures in the current fiscal year. Again, some unanticipated shortfalls in revenue. Again, I say unanticipated to the level that they've fallen. We're anticipating them to fall because we did, in our revenue projections, anticipate some shortfalls, which, as everybody recognizes over the last few months, just since July 1st when the fiscal year started, an awful lot of bad things have happened, which have had a significant impact on the town's revenue stream. So I agree with the chairman. We're going to have to take some swift and prudent action in order to monitor our activities here at our current spending levels. And it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be painless. We can't make up $700,000 plus and not have an impact on programs for people. So we have our work cut out for us in the short run, and then looking forward to 2010. God help us. Divine intervention is going to be needed, I think. So we have some difficult decisions to make in a very short period of time.
Greg, you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, just to follow up your presentation on the revenue numbers, I did have an opportunity before the meeting to look at the September 30th revenues. Those are the latest amounts that we have available. And also looked at some of our building permit activity, and although I can't necessarily draw any conclusions from those things, I thought it would be interesting to give you a little bit of an idea of, on the revenue side, where we were a year ago on September 30th versus where we were September 30th of 2008. And you identified a number of items up there, and I also went through and took a few of those things and did some comparisons. And for example, investment earnings within 1 year, they're down $15,700. So that's the beginning of the trend that you've identified, Mr. Chairman, up there in terms of bringing in less revenue. Licenses and permits, which, as you stated, was primarily building permits, is down $36,200 from September of 2007. A quick review of the number of permits that have been issued. From January through September of this year, September 30th of this year, there have been 11 building permits taken out for new home construction. That compares to 17 permits taken out for the same period of January through September 30th of 2007. The value of those permits is slightly less, about $8,000 to $9,000 less. So there are not only fewer homes being built, the value of those homes is slightly decreased compared to what we've seen in the past. Townhomes or condominiums, the 2007 numbers, there were 8 through September 30th of 2007. The value, average value is $214,825. To date, we've had a total of 4, and the value of those is $202,400. Again, the trend is fewer permits and less value, so I think it does absolutely drive home the points that you have raised. Fees are down $15,000, and that's for the same period versus 1 year ago. Interestingly enough, the motor vehicle excise tax trend, despite what we've been seeing in other communities and what we've heard, if you just look at the collections through September 30th, we're a bit ahead of where we were last year. So we have not necessarily seen the erosion that we're predicting in motor vehicle excise tax. As you stated, the major commitment comes out in February of every year. If we wait to make a decision at that point, we may have waited too long. The real estate collections as of September 30th, 2008 were good. And by good, I'm just saying that keep in mind that 25% of the town's real estate commitment for the year is the bill that's due on August 1st. So to date, we have total real estate collections of our total commitment of 24%. And in terms of looking at where we were last year for the same period, we're at 23%. So the real estate collections are coming in. And tax title, the treasurer is doing an aggressive job with collection on tax title accounts. And although that's not part of the revenue plan that you see here, we cannot use those monies as a local receipt. The State Department of Revenue will not allow us to do that, but it is an interesting number that the amount of tax title payments is $33,200, and for the same period of September of 2007 was $14,100. So the trends are up and down. We've only got 3 months worth of history. I think that the key numbers will be to monitor that on an ongoing basis. But as the chairman pointed out in his presentation, we are beginning to see an erosion in those key areas that we identified as areas at risk for our local receipts. And I have some other information that I will present on the matter.
The $480,000 that on the real estate committed, on the number, the adjustment there is, it's less than 2%. So, I mean, it's a big number, a small percentage.
Yeah, sure is.
Is just keep that in mind associated with where we are. So
It is interesting to see that the suspicion that we had about building permits is in fact proven true.
okay. Any other comments or questions regarding that? So we will be getting a further update at our next meeting associated with digging into some of the changes. As actually, you surprised me this evening. You actually
Having some numbers? I just got them. And I didn't have an opportunity to do an in-depth analysis, but we certainly will going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be appropriate, maybe just to throw out there, I think the board should go on record. I move that the board strongly encourage the voters of the town of North Reading to vote no on question 1.
You're making
That's a
motion.
That's a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Delaney. Any further discussion? I think we've heard enough
Pretty
about
clear.
it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Proceed. Town Administrator's report.
Maybe I could go out of order and just really address number 3, which works in well with your presentation, Mr. Chairman. As Selectman Delaney mentioned, you do have a copy of the letter that was issued by the governor